From my friend, combative specialist Mark Animal McYoung. Most people parrot the cliches that convince them. Kind of makes you wonder about how low that bar is. But that aside, this is why when someone starts up, I tell them to tell me something about the subject that I haven't heard before. It's easy to control the narrative when you keep people speaking and thinking in sound bites, and you don't allow the dialogue to proceed past that. We saw that during the COVID epidemic and many other crises during the past couple of years. Once the talking point goes out there, the grazers just repeat it blindly. You ask them to get outside the realm of those talking points, and suddenly the hemming and hawing begins. The ad hominem attacks begin, because that's really all that they have. As we've lamented on this program before, if you control the stimulus, you control the response. If you control the perception, you control people's reality. And the easiest way to control that perception is to keep them thinking and speaking only in talking points. This week, Elon Musk declared national public radio state-sponsored media. Now, in doing so, he used the same criteria that other media outlets and so-called fact checkers use for, say, Russia Today or Sputnik or any of the Russian news networks or foreign news networks that are hostile to the United States. If you are receiving 15% of your money from the government and you are parroting government talking points, you are, by their own definition, state-sponsored media. If you had fact checkers that worked for NPR even a week before last, they would have told you this by that definition about Russia Today or Sputnik or any of a number of foreign media organizations. Hell, even the BBC fits that definition. Now, Elon went one step further and pointed out the obvious. NPR may be official state-controlled media, but all mainstream media serves as a mouthpiece for the regime. All mainstream media serves as a mouthpiece for the deep state. Was Elon taking a cheap shot at NPR because they took government funding? Maybe. We can debate the merits of that argument later. But I got to say, NPR didn't do itself any favors when, in its insistence that it was not state-sponsored media, this, of course, being the talking point. Don't get people thinking outside of the talking points. The talking point was, we are independent. And nothing says that you're independent like having the chief PR flack for the regime come out in a news conference and tell everyone how independent you are. Imagine, not even Putin. Imagine Dmitry Medvedev coming out in a news conference and attesting to the fierce independent journalism of Russia Today or Sputnik. Jesus Christ. But once you keep people thinking in talking points, what you need to do is ask them. Ask them to defend their position. Here's example number 2. Alvin Bragg, Manhattan District Attorney on the left. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States on the right. Now, the talking point goes out that it's a Al Capone moment. He's committed all these crimes, and we can't get him on anything else, so we're going to have to take him on this little thing. You get people talking about it, but they don't know the details. They don't realize that the statute of limitations has already run out. They don't realize that Merrick fucking Garland refused to prosecute this case as the misdemeanor that it is. They don't realize that Cohen and Stormy Daniels, the 2 top witnesses in this case, have both been convicted of perjury, and porn star Stormy Daniels actually owes the ex-president in excess of $300,000 for lying. But again, keep them on the talking points. They won't get past that. You control the narrative by controlling the perception and therefore controlling people's reality. Ask one of these people saying, well, we've got him, to explain the case, and it all falls apart. Just like McYoung was saying, ask them to tell you something about the subject that you haven't heard before, and they have nothing. Ukraine, Another classic example. People will tell you what the talking points tell them to tell you, that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was completely unprovoked, that Ukraine is winning the war, that 150 billion is a small price to pay for the most important war, and then you ask them to tell you something about it that you haven't heard before. Better yet, ask them to find Ukraine on a map. They can't do it. It all falls apart. But yet, they remain devoted to the talking point. They remain committed to repeating what they've been told. They know nothing past that. Washington State this week passed a ban on scary looking weapons, assault weapons, as they are called. They will tell you that those enhancements are not purely cosmetic, that these are the weapons of choice for mass murderers. But what they don't bother telling you is that literally year after year, more people are killed with bare hands. More people are killed with hammers and screwdrivers than are killed with all rifles combined, let alone these scary assault weapons. Ask them to tell you something that you haven't heard about it. Better yet, ask them to define what an assault weapon is. They've got nothing. My personal current favorite, gender affirming care. And the scare talking point goes out that we are jeopardizing the lives of these children by denying them health care. Again, it's a word game. But ask these people who are parroting this to define what gender affirming care is. Well, the answer is simple and it's provable, and up to and including giving these children puberty blocking drugs that will affect their health for the rest of their lives, and mutilating, I will say it again, mutilating prepubescent or adolescent children. That is what gender affirming care means. There are no limits to this. But again, the talking point is that we are the threat to these children's health by trying to prevent doctors from mutilating them, in some states without even so much as a parental consultation. Gender affirming care. Ask them to tell you something about gender affirming care beyond their talking point. Ask them what the limits are. Ask them why their professed position makes it okay to cut the cock off a boy who is not yet of age to buy a pack of cigarettes. They fall apart. They have nothing. They babble, and then the ad hominem attacks begin. Now, you can't blame less intelligent people for repeating talking points. It's all that they're capable of. You can't blame people who have been raised in a culture that not only rejects, but in fact demonizes critical thinking for repeating what they're told. But like Mark Twain said, it ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so. And unfortunately, we accord these talking point repeating parrots the same importance in the public discussion as people who actually do think. Now, what was Mark Twain? Mark Twain was a humorist, which drives home the point about the importance of humor. We can get upset about all of these things. Hell, we should be upset and we should be outraged. And it may get to a point where harsh verbiage or even physical confrontation becomes the response of choice. It may get to that point. But in the meantime, I will again stress the importance of ridicule. The left is losing the culture war primarily because they have lost their sense of humor. I have lamented this many times on the program before. The record is long. Ridicule and humor is the way to address this. Point out the idiocy of it and laugh Remember the emperor's new clothes? Remember that fable? All it took, everyone else was too afraid to say anything, and all it took was that one 6-year-old to step from the crowd, point, and start laughing because the emperor was, in fact, naked. H.L. Mencken had a word on this. The final test of truth is ridicule. Very few dogmas have ever faced it and survived. Now that these elements of the culture war have become the new religion for the left, the new religion for those who seek to tear down everything that is good about the West, I hold that we are still in a position where the most important response we can have is to call these dogmas out, to call these false doctrines out, point them out, ridicule them to their faces. As Mencken was saying, very few dogmas have ever faced it and survived. We will see how it turns out, but we will test that truth. We will test it, and I promise you, in the grand scheme of things, because people are fundamentally suckers for the truth, when we test that dogma loudly, publicly, and in their face, it will be found wanting. The opinions expressed by the Reverend are his own and no one else's on the planet. Not friends, not foes, not supporters, not detractors, not sponsors, and I cannot stress this enough with a new gig starting in a week or two. Certainly not employers. They have been adjudicated thought crime in all jurisdictions. Consider yourself warned. They are coming from the heart. They are guided by the mind. They are guaranteed to stretch that cum catcher open and choke you with a big, fat, unstoppable, turgid, throbbing, swollen dose of truth, cock. Open wide. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon, boys and girls. All right, man. I can't wait to do this roll call, see what I missed out on. Everybody in for the drum roll. Let's see where the fire's at, man. Let's get some energy going up in here. Yes. Coming at you from level 2, the command center level of the Bart Bunker in Spokane, Washington. It's time once again for the Sunday sermon. All my Reverend Rangers, all my Sinner Sisters, all my OG Prophets of Doom, welcome aboard. We're kicking off the bumper music as always. Red Desert, gut stomping rock and roll band from the once great city that is now smoldering embers and ruins. Talking about Minneapolis, Minnesota. The name of the band is Red Desert. The name of the track is Older, No Wiser. Every week I get a little bit older. Every week you guys get to decide if I've gotten any wiser. Some weeks I do better than others. We're going to see how this one turns out. Let's go through the roll call and see who all we got on board. The lovely Miss Emmy, the original Sinner Sister herself. Brother Roman, good to see you, my friend. Look at this, man. Bill Wade, friend and supporter. Hey, Mr. Wade, I'm glad you are on board. Going to be talking about a move that I'm going to be making over to Substack. I will still be doing the sermons, but a few things are going to be changing up. We're going to get into that later in the program. Joel Allen Jackson on board from just outside the kill zone in Ohio. Marksman extraordinaire, putting food on the table with air guns, finding a way to work around gun restrictions. It can be done. Plus, he's just an old and dear friend of mine, man. We got plenty of stories, and one day when the statute of limitations runs out, we're going to tell some of them. Ah, look at this. My brother, only about a week out now, so looking forward to seeing you down the line. That is going to be an interesting little exchange. Brother Joey, good morning, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all the ships at sea. Howdy, kids. Good to see you, brother. Good to see you. Mr. Wright, hi, kids. Good to have you on board, and oh my goodness, look who decided to show up, Brother G-Dub. G.W. Bowles, you guys have seen him on all the trucker reality programs. I'm still jealous of the man. There's that cute little blonde from Ice Road Truckers. That was my secret girlfriend, man, and he got to be in a truck cab with her for like half a season, and I'm still jealous about that. But all other kidding aside, man, G-Dub has done a fuck ton, specifically over on Twitter, to boost the reach of the program, to turn a lot more people on to that gospel we're preaching over here. And G-Dub, can't thank you enough. Thank you very much for your assistance. You know what? You should follow G Dub on Twitter. He's a like-minded and kindred spirit, man. We have our things that we disagree on, but in the ultimate grand scheme of things, it's snivel and bullshit that we disagree on. The core, the values, man, the principles. We're in lockstep. So thanks for being on board. Ah, look at this. Brother, I am glad you made it, man. What are you watching? Are you watching on Facebook? Cool. Yeah, I've got a little thing over here in the comments now that I can see. I don't have to take the poll anymore. I can see what format everybody's watching on. So we got Luke C. Ray over there. Formerly, the artist formerly known as Wolf DeLong. And I still bear partial responsibility for that, Wolf. I really do. Because I think a lot of the Facebook flack that you were getting was largely in support of my post, man. So I apologize for dragging you kicking and screaming into the maelstrom. David McConnell on board. Good to see you. Good to see you. Who we got? Hips. Glad you made it. This clearly, you got to think about it, man. Gardner, it is good to have you on board, man. Anybody that knows, if you have trained with me for any length of time with kettlebells, you will hear the word hips in your sleep. It'll wake you up at 3 o'clock in the morning in a cold sweat. Brother Sully, damn, bro. Good to see you. See you're over watching on Facebook. Good to have you on board. I miss you, man. It's been a long time. Jason fucking Sullivan, man. Old school H-Town. G-Dub moving to Alaska next month. So done with the Houston area. You know what, G-Dub? Hit me with a direct message because I'd like to get some details on that. You've been talking about that for a minute, and it was finally coming around to where you can make it happen. Yeah, right on. Don't you mean female Storm? Yes, that was wrong. Sally forth into the maelstrom. Well, who am I to assume its gender? I'm going to fade this bumper music out a little bit. We're going to jump off into it. Man, we got a lot of stuff to cover. Combination of enthusiasms today. Of course, I've got my Iron Infidel battle bottle. Iron Infidel does not sponsor the program. But here's the thing, man, and this is really kind of a poor business model on my part. I tend to give shout outs to people that even if they aren't sponsors of the program, if I use the product and I believe in it, they wind up getting a shout out. But you can always take, knowing my integrity like that, you can't always take that if I am giving something props on the program, it is something that I personally use and I personally believe in. And these battle bottles are freaking epic, man. I mean, you got a spot for your wallet. This is like one-stop shopping to carry into the gym, so you don't have to carry like a whole gym bag just for like a little bit of stuff. You got a spot for your wallet, spot for your phone, little ring for your keys, nice little paracord handle, and it's an insulated mug that keeps the hot stuff hot and the cool stuff cool. And shit, man, I dig it. I've been running this thing since I was out on the Facebook project. Was that shit? Probably early on in the Facebook project. So I've been running this thing for over a year now. So. And it is full of my liquid enthusiasm, my caffeinated lemonade. And so that's that, man. That's that. That's what's fueling it. Oh, Brother James, glad you made it. Afternoon for me and Nelda. Please give that young lady a hug for me. And man, hopefully sooner than later, I will be back in the Lone Star State in a context where we will be able to at least have a short visit, if nothing else. So that would be really, really cool. I will be down in the Lone Star State for something else that I have going on, but I will be taken up with learning and probably, if Sonny has anything to do with it, probably a great degree of suffering. So, so I don't know if I'm going to have time for like a friendly visit within the context of that time frame. Let me just sponsor shout outs real quick. Of course, first and foremost, Brother Roman and his lovely wife, Carrie, and Allie and Roxy and the bevy of beautiful women over at opiumtales.com. They are the erotic pinups and portraits people. Roman has been a friend of mine good Lord, we go all the way back to 1988. And the way that we met was an interesting story, too, because I think both of us were, it's really funny when I think back on that, because I think both of us were a little left of center at the time. And when I think about the actual event itself, like back in context, now if that bitch would have lipped off like that, we'd probably about halfway agree with her. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. He is an extremely creative personality. Always has been, mostly on the musical front, during the times that we were closest together for the longest. But he's doing work with watercolors now. You've got beautiful naked women, beautiful portrait and pinup work of beautiful naked women, and testosterone-driven commentary. It's a Reverend Bart, Planet Bart trifecta. So go check him out and follow him on Twitter. He is back on Twitter, Roman Reba, opiumtales.com. Check it out. Definitely worth a look. Also to my Viking brothers, Casey and Dusty Tellison, from Nordic Smoke Barbecue, the only legit barbecue in the Inland Northwest, period, full fucking stop. I will go to the wall for that shit because it is a fact. Those guys are freaking amazing. And by the way, Dusty, it took me a little over a week to get through all of that barbecue that you brought by for the birthday, man. I mean, part of it was pacing myself, and part of it was just like, oh my God, I was overwhelmed. I was just absolutely overwhelmed. And believe it or not, I've still got some of that smoked mac and cheese. I couldn't finish it all over the course of a week, so I kind of like stuck it off in containers, like put this stuff in the freezer. In any case, guys, if you are in the Inland Northwest, definitely check them out. If you're not, check them out on social media. All the major platforms, Nordic Smoke Barbecue. They've got some big things on the horizon. They've already got their sauces and their rubs available to sell and to ship, and they are putting something together. You know what? I can't give away the farm here as bad as I want to, but big things are in the works, and they will be back out in the Spokane area with the Longship, the Viking Longship, their big smoker truck. And they'll be setting up on a weekly basis again, heading into springtime. So check them out, opiumtales.com and Nordic Smoke Barbecue, flagship sponsors of the Reverend Bart Sunday sermon. You feel the meat sweats from here, more or less, man. More or less. The one really good thing that I had going on, Monty, is that I was on cycle and I was lifting heavy. Otherwise, I probably just would have like eaten myself into a coma. All right, guys, let's get on with it. You guys know how the program rolls. First thing we're going to do is take a little trip down Ryan's rabbit hole. Ryan Adam Jenkins, you guys are familiar with him. Love him like my own brother. He is the guy that opened the door and made it possible for me to begin my journey as a crane operator. Real quick fill in for that as well. Since I am on the topic, I will be starting another gig in the Salt Lake City, Utah area on the 24th of this month. I will give you more details as they progress, but we are going to be doing sermons from the road again very, very soon. So you will know when it hits because it'll pop up and the background behind me will be different. So you guys will know that. Also, 2 weeks from now, there will be a Sunday likely without a sermon, but again, more about that as we go on. Let's jump off into the rabbit hole. Are you guys familiar with Bolero? You know what? I do not have that downloaded to iTunes, so let's do a little clickety click here and see if we can pull this up. That was a little. Here we go. All right, right on. So you guys, if you are familiar with Maurice Ravel, Bolero, right? This is obviously a live version. So let me go ahead. You know what? I'm going to let that play gently in the background while we go over this. A lot of people do not like Bolero. They find it repetitive. The only thing that really changes through the entire thing, and Roman will be the one to attest to this. Timbra is like the only thing that changes. The rhythm. Some of you guys will be familiar with at least the outlay of this if you have watched Conan the Barbarian. Same basic vibe, same basic feel. Um, but the time signature doesn't change. The instrumentation changes. The timbre changes. A lot of critics find Bolero very, very repetitive. which of course was somewhat the point when he was putting it together. Ravel was from right on the French Spanish border, and a lot of people uh, they have made guesses as to what inspired the pulsing, repetitive rhythm. There is a certain sexual overtone to the entire thing. Um, it's tender, it's loving, it's fuck her through the headboard. It's Ted Nugent's stranglehold for the 1930s, man. But it's there's a lot more behind it. Ravel himself basically said that the rhythmic structure of it was inspired by a factory that he had visited with his father, who was an engineer back when he was a very young child. Here's another little poke into your bread oven about Ravel's Bolero. Um, Bolero was suffering from frontal lobe dementia at the time that he put this entire thing together. It's which is like which is a little known fact, but as he was putting this together, his brain was sort of coming apart. He had um, he had originally based it on a Romeo and Juliet type story. I almost don't want to talk over this because it really is a fantastic piece. Um, bring that volume up a little bit to you guys can jump off into that. He had originally planned the composition. Um, he had originally planned the opposition to be an orchestral piece in and of itself, and it got swung into opera. The reason it is named Bolero is because that 3/4 time signature um, is in sync with a lot of Spanish forms of. It's got that Spanish vibe to it, which is why he changed the name uh, from Fandango, which was originally named, to Bolero. Um, but there is there's a deeper story at work with this, um, and a lot of people think that it is potentially not exactly true. Uh, uh, it wasn't initially received very well, and in fact, at many points in his career, Ravel even hated it. The critics lamented the same thing that people in this day and age do with regard to the repetitive the repetitive nature of it. Um, One critic went so far as to say that it was a work that had no form, properly speaking, no development, no or almost no modulation. Well, here's the thing about that: it still resonated. There were enough people that did look into that they found it appealing, regardless of that. And a lot of times, you will find that in modern compositions, things that are not supposed to work, but they appeal to the ear, and and you'll find that they're more widely accepted by the people than they are with the critics. Um, but originally, it was meant they had taken it. It was going to be a purely orchestral work, and someone had already taken it and seized those original compositions, and they were going to turn it into something else. So he was basically compelled um, to go along with the whole opera plan for the damn thing. It's I don't know how much you guys are interested in classical music or any of those or any of the facets thereof, but when you look into the apocryphal story behind how it all came together, and I'm not going to do any spoiler alerts for you right now, you're going to find that it is a pretty fascinating little how we got here kind of story. Ravel, Bolero, and I'm sure that Roman by now has chimed in over here in the comments. Um, just a march, just a march. There were shitloads of them in that era. Okay, well, Oh, the sound is being overwhelmed, so it's making me break up. All right, cool. We'll go ahead and knock that out. Sound just went wonky. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and knock that out. All right, apologies. Apologies. In any case, Maurice Ravel, Maurice, Ravel, Ravel, Bolero. Bolero is the name of the piece. That is going to be your rabbit hole. Follow it down as far as you are willing to go and believe whichever end of the story. And perhaps even another theory that the repetitiveness of it was because of the fact that he was coming apart at the seams with early onset frontal lobe dementia. You know, number of theories, but it's a fascinating little piece of music with a fascinating story behind it, and that's going to be a rabbit hole for the week. Let's go ahead and jump on down that. One thing I want to do real quick before I go any further is to take a moment of silence for a very good friend of mine. If Mike Darmada is watching, he's going to feel this more strongly than any of you out there. I want to take just a moment of silence for Stephen Parnell Robbins. Steve and I were like brothers, and Steve was like me, a very difficult person to be friends with. He was like me, loud, angry, abrasive, but he would do anything in the world for someone that he considered a friend. And the entire time that he was in the penitentiary, and he did the rock and roll tour of Texas Department of Corrections. He was on Beto 1 unit, he was on Cofield, he was on Ferguson, a couple other units. And when he got out after his last bid, the only thing that he wanted to do was open a tattoo shop. And he did whatever it took to get that tattoo shop opened. Some means more unscrupulous than others. No need to really get into it, but I befriended him as he was doing an apprenticeship over at Celtic Odyssey, and we bonded, and we were very, very close. Dude was like flesh and blood to me for years, and we fought like brothers do. We fucking fought. We had a couple of outright physical confrontations. Just throw down scraps, man. Throw down scraps. But we always brought it back together. If and I don't want to get off on the regret, but I'll share the truth of the story. That still kind of haunts my heart is anytime we would butt heads and we would part, it would always be, it's almost like we alternated which one of us was going to be the bigger person and step up and be like, look, dog, I love you and I'm sorry, and it was like every other time we alternated almost perfectly, at the time that he was killed, we hadn't spoken in about a month, and it wasn't like a real throwdown or anything like that. It was just a little bristly, but it was my turn. It was my turn. It was my turn to say sorry and step up. And I never got that chance. A group of predatory miscreant scumbags walked up into that tattoo shop that I had helped them open. And Steve straight up saved the lives of 4 customers. He told the customers to go out the back door. Steve didn't have a fearful bone in his body. He hated guns. Absolutely hated them. I begged him, even though, it technically would have been felon in possession. The part of town that he was in right there at 290 and Mangum was a very bad part of town. I begged him to let me keep a shotgun up there, for him, just tucked away somewhere, and he didn't want it. Didn't want the energy of it. I'm not saying that would have made a difference. It probably wouldn't have, because the scumbags in question got the drop on him. But he put himself, he had gone to the back to get some tattoo ink. He was halfway through a piece on a guy's arm. He had gone to the back to get some tattoo ink. When he came out, the scumbags were already inside. They were wearing masks, and they were in the process of robbing his customers. And Steve, again, without a fearful bone in his body, walked right into the middle of that shit And in his own inimitable fashion, um, yo, dog, nah, this is my shop, dog. This is my shop. You take my money. You fucking leave my customers alone, dog. And he told the customers to get out of the back, and they were hesitant to do so. And Steve, man, I told y'all, get on out the back door. I got this. And I am told by witnesses that Steve looked at one of the guys and said, "Hey, I know you, motherfucker. I know you." At that point, one of the customers ran for the back. Steve went right into the middle of it because as soon as the customer ran for the back, dude lifted up the weapon and Steve got in on him. It was 4 against 1, and they wrestled for the gun. And Teddy Batiste, his murderer, got the weapon loose and stitched him. Just opened up, dumped the whole magazine. I was in that shop cleaning stuff up 2 days later as soon as the police pulled the tape down. And there were bullet holes in the walls and mirrors and furniture and everything. He dumped the whole magazine. But he hit Steve 7 times, including a headshot. But that struggle and wrestling with the gun allowed the rest of the customers to get out the back door. A week later, Teddy Batiste murdered somebody else for a set of rims, and high-speed pursuit ensued. They caught him. In any case, that was 14 years ago today. 14 fucking years. Teddy Batiste is still alive. Teddy Batiste is still waiting to ride the needle. You know what? I posted to my personal page. My personal page, because this is personal. I posted to it today, but I'm just going to read it for you, man, verbatim. 14 years now. 14 years since Steve's murder. My brother died in a pool of his own blood, saving 4 lives in the process, taking 7 rounds, including a headshot. The tattoo shop that I helped him open. Teddy Batiste, this lower simian primate, this upright walking dog that shot him, is still waiting to ride the needle. I hear a lot of words: social justice, bail reform, and my current favorite, equity-based sentencing. Take the time to look up that word, equity. Equity refers to fairness and justice. I see fucking neither fairness nor justice. I got 13 flying fucks at 50 rolling donuts about your ideas of equity. But I can tell you what justice looks like. I have a very clear idea of what justice looks like. From the sight of the blood, to the smell of an open abdominal wall, to the sounds of bones, joints, and screams. Grazers and Pollyannas, you have made this possible. You, in your misguided and naive belief that people are basically good. That it is we who have failed them and not their own poor decisions. You brought us to this point. And soon, very soon, these predatory miscreant maggots that you enable and deify will fucking feel what Kipling called the wrath of the awakened Saxon. And from that piece, time shall count from the date. I said what I fucking said. I love Steve, man. He was one of a kind. And again, we had our ups and we had our downs. But all told, I wouldn't have traded any of it for anything else. Dude was my brother. I loved him, and I'm sorry that he's gone. So if I could get y'all to take just a couple of seconds of silence for my brother Steve. Stephen Parnell Robbins, ladies and gentlemen, 14 years ago today. I think sometimes about what he'd have to say. Regard to all the shit going on in this day and age. Sometimes I don't know what he would have said, but I tell you what, I'd give damn near anything to have him here to say it. So, Steve, we love you. We miss you. Rest in peace, brother. And we will be here. We will be here waiting for Teddy to ride the needle. Some of the stuff that I was talking about earlier in the opener, it does deal with that point that Mark McYoung was making. Some of you guys may be familiar with Mark McYoung. About the cliches that convince them. People just repeat those talking points. So when someone starts up, I tell them to ask, I ask them to tell me something about the subject that I haven't heard before. When I hear those terms like bail reform and equity-based sentencing and things like that, this is kind of stuff that I think of. I promise you, if someone is advocating for any of these things, only one of three possibilities exists. The most likely possibility is that they are talking out their ass because their mouth knows better, because they've never been directly affected by the actions of one of these scumbag miscreants. Then there's the polar opposite end of that, which is people that know if they're directly lying, that they are protecting their particular demographic, and you can take that any way you want to fucking take it, at the expense of everyone else's, and they don't give a fuck how it's going to affect other people. I can even see, on a purely selfish level, I can see how that works, right? But then you have the third and the worst variety, which is people who maybe not even directly affected, but are familiar with everything involved with this issue. They're familiar. They know what the stats are. They know the people that are affected, and they persist in what they know to be a lie for whatever reason. They're committed to the narrative. They're trying to sway other people politically, or they just want to watch the fucking world burn. Those people I have a special kind of contempt for. If you've never been affected by this, I don't dig the fact that you're saying these things, right? But I understand it. If you're just shilling for your own people, I see you, right? And you are a scumbag. But if you are using it to generate a larger response, you're beneath contempt, man. You're beneath contempt. I have already cut a number of people out of my life who are on that bail reform bandwagon, and I just won't play the game anymore. I won't, because it is personal. And beyond it being personal, I see how it affects people that are close to me now. I see people who are affected that are 2 degrees removed, and how they are affected. I won't play that game either. Law enforcement people that are close to me that look at a district attorney like Kim Ogg turning people loose turning people loose on PR bonds, turning people loose on a low bond that discharged a firearm in an attempt to take a cop's life. This is the reality in blue cities now. I mean, Seattle and Portland is completely out of hand. Wow. That's crazy. I didn't know that. Wow. Those people are being affected by that every day. Getting just a little sidebar dealing with what we talked about in the opener, right? This guy Alvin Bragg on the left, the guy that's prosecuting Trump right now for this bullshit farce of a case. I won't hear from people telling me, well, we have to be committed to the rule of law when this guy's spending all these resources on what amounts to a misdemeanor, and murders are up 200+% in his district. Rapes are up. Armed robberies are up because he refuses to prosecute, because he made certain whole sets of things non-arrestable offenses, up to and including aggravated assault in some cases. Don't tell me about the rule of law, right? Please don't. I would rather you say what you fucking mean, all right? I can at least respect that. You look at me, you say Donald Trump's a scumbag. I don't care what they get him on, as long as they get him. At least we're having an honest discussion. But when you dress it up with this bullshit about, well, no one is above the law and we have to make sure that blah, blah, blah. Fucking just stop, bro. Stop. How you hold yourself up in this fake moral virtue, but how fucked up are you that you are so deranged against one fucking human being and you don't even know why you hate him? You don't even know why you hate him, except the glowing box told you to. You're unfamiliar with any of those facts, but you're willing to waste millions of dollars in New York taxpayer, fucking Manhattan taxpayer money, while people are being murdered, while people are being raped. You're turning loose people who are doing violent physical harm to other individuals in the pursuit of a guy that allegedly gave some money to a whore who sued him and lost, a whore that currently owes him over $300,000 and was just ordered to pay another $120,000 just this week on the basis of a witness who flipped on Trump after being convicted of perjury, who we now are told we have to take at his word. You follow me here? We're going to keep coming back to this from the opener. Get someone to tell you something that they haven't heard before. The entire fucking thing falls apart. You believe the cliches that convinced you in the first place. It's on anything. We get to see it at work during COVID. And I'm going to try to keep this together and follow along. But that is the theme, man. The theme is to dig deeper. When it affects you personally, getting back to Steve, I don't want to hear your talking points about bail reform. I don't want to hear your bullshit about equity-based sentencing. Teddy Batiste had a rap sheet. Teddy Batiste had a rap sheet longer than Peter North's cock, and was out walking around in the goddamn world. Was out on bond at the time that he murdered my brother. We are creating this arrogance, so spare me your talking points. I don't care about whatever. I literally don't care about whatever inequities might have caused this. Even if I were conceding that that were the root cause of it, which I don't care. Don't spit at me in talking points. Don't do it. I ain't no time for it. People that spew ignorance need to start being held to account, no matter who the fuck they are. Case in point, unless you think I'm letting conservatives off the hook, when we get off into this Restrict Act, we're gonna have to take a little walk down memory lane about the last time a conservative fucking got on board and started pushing something based on fucking talking points after a national tragedy. The Patriot Act still haunts us. The FISA court, that still haunts us. I want to remind a lot of you so-called conservatives that were advocates for G.W. Bush back in the day that now lament all of the injustices that have been committed against Trump. And you should, right? They fucked him with that FISA court. Why was the FISA court available for them as a tool with which to fuck the man? Because of you, Sparky. Because of you. Buying the Patriot Act based on what? Talking points and incomplete knowledge. If someone would have asked most of these people back then, what's in the Patriot Act? Oh, stuff against terrorism. All right, cool. Can you give me specifics? And of course they can't. You're going to have to open the width of your perception. You're going to have to dig deeper for deeper understanding of these issues. And yes, you're going to have to get into the minutia. Is it a lot to keep up with? Yeah, it is. But if you don't have the right to a fucking opinion. Everybody's got a right to their opinion. No, could not disagree more. You have the right to an informed and educated opinion, or you have the right to a big cup of shut the fuck up. You can spout whatever ignorance you want. You can spout whatever incomplete knowledge you want. You can even spout whatever falsehoods you want. Provided you don't know that they are falsehoods. If you know they're falsehoods, now we got an issue. You're still free to spew them, but we are on a very different level here. How do we get to a point where people speak in talking points? How do we get to a level of narrative control where everyone can be easily persuaded through things that fall apart under what I call the 9-second rule? If there are points in the narrative, if your entire narrative can be ODP, you guys familiar with ODP? You down with ODP? Objectively, demonstrably, provably. It's my own little hashtag. I like it. ODP. Objectively, demonstrably, provably. If your narrative can be destroyed, ODP, with a 9-second Google search, it is not the treachery of the people spouting the narrative that I lament. It is you and your intellectual fucking laziness. And when you take that one step further and start spouting these talking points as if they were even your opinion, let alone your informed opinion, brother, we've got an issue. But how do we even get to that point? This week, Elon got himself into some more hot water for speaking what is essentially the truth. Back in the days, in the Soviet era, and several people who are friends of mine that are Russians or from the communist bloc or from some of those Soviet republics, if not ethnic Russians, they survived the Soviet era. The one thing that they consistently say, and I'm constantly misattributing the quote, but I get this sentiment from all of them. is that the one good thing about living under that totalitarian regime was that you knew that anything that came from the media, in the Soviet Union, there was Pravda, truth. There was TASS, another Russian news agency. Anything that came from Pravda or TASS, you knew was government propaganda. If you lived in the Soviet Union, if you were a Soviet citizen, you knew that anything that came from the radio, the television, or the newspaper was propaganda. You knew it. You couldn't really say that publicly, but everybody knew it. There was a certain comfort in that, in knowing that anything that you were hearing, you had to process through the filters of your own observation and decide for yourself what was ODP, true, objectively, demonstrably, provably. We have a disadvantage here in that we have so many media outlets, and we think that we are being given free and independent and accurate information, when in fact, everything that comes from any of the network affiliates, any American mainstream media, period, is controlled propaganda. All of it. You have the occasional voices that will step outside the narrative, but for all we know, even those are controlled opposition. What, you conservatives want to lean on Fox? Fuck yourself. Remember the talking point earlier about Ukraine? Who's toeing the line on that? Who's toeing the line on that? Eye Patch McCain, Dan Crenshaw, number of fucking prominent alleged conservatives, alleged Republicans in the fucking House and Senate, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham. It's war. Benefits the deep state. NPR was hung this week with the label of being state-run media. Immediately they protested, as you would expect one to do when called on a fact that paints them in a negative light. Same definition applies. And look, I won't mince words. You guys know, I love Elon, but Elon didn't do this because of the definition. He did it because he could. He did it because fuck NPR. That's why. He called the New York Times straight up propaganda because fuck the New York Times. That's why. He didn't do this as a matter of principle. He did it as a matter of fuck you. And you know what? I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Because he was essentially, in doing so, holding them to account for their own fucking definition. The New York Times quite correctly refers to Russia Today and Sputnik and other Russian media outlets as state-run media. Because they are. They have some level of editorial control. They have some things where they are allowed discretion. They even had, for the longest time, they had American reporters working for Russia Today. And what did the Democrats have to say about them? Tools of the Kremlin, mouthpieces of the Kremlin. They don't have any autonomy because X amount of money funds Russia Today. Say 15%. Could be more than that, but let's say that the benchmark, we're going to set that at 15%. Why? Because that's how much of NPR's funding comes from the federal government. And they keep saying how independent they are, but every year they demand more money from the federal government. What is the left constantly telling us about the power of money in politics? Corporations, they spend all this fucking money. Power of money in advertising. Corporations spend all this money in advertising, and they are quite correct. When you buy ads on a major network, you have some degree of editorial control over what they put out. When General Electric, a major war contractor, owns NBC, as they did for the longest, NBC's coverage is going to reflect that, as in anything negative about the deep state or the war machine isn't going to be reported. And we are to think for a minute that NPR has complete autonomy in their editorial decisions, even as they spew wholesale propaganda. Ponder that for a second. Let me get back to this page right here. They were caught dead to rights on one, and I'm going to play you the audio version of it, but I'll continue to expound on that while I'm scrolling down trying to find this thing. If Elon would have said that they are state-controlled media with a Republican in the White House, I would have felt compelled. To call bullshit. Yes, even on Elon. Why? Because the only time that they have exercised any degree of independence, journalistic integrity or independence, is when there have been Republicans in office. NPR was one of the most important voices during the Bush administration. Let me say that. NPR, shows like Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman, they were vitally important during the Bush administration. Why? Because the machine of the media was kowtowing to the Bush administration, cherry picking intelligence for the war effort, not calling them out on their inaccuracies, not calling them out on their double talks, or on their double speak, rather, or their lies. I even watched Keith Olbermann during the Bush administration. He was just as much a foaming at the mouth lunatic then as he was now, but at least he was a real voice of dissent. NPR, no such thing. No such luck with NPR. Not with this regime in power. So as long as they are going to be a mouthpiece for the regime, and as long as they are accepting money from the regime, they are state-run media. No more or no less than TASS or Pravda during the Soviet era. But this is the important point that we're going to come back to. No more or no less than any other media outlet. MSNBC may not be taking money from the regime, but MSNBC is taking money from Pfizer, and Pfizer has lobbied the regime. The regime is speaking vaccine propaganda for Pfizer, which is being not only backed up by MSNBC because Pfizer sponsors the program, but dovetails nicely with the fact that it is the official narrative coming from the regime. Do you see how one hand washes the other and both of them wash their own balls? Are you following me here? Why is this hard to track? It's not, because you're a thinker. But why can we not get it through the skulls of these people that well, I answered my own question. They're willingly blind. This isn't a matter of ignorance anymore. Again, a 9-second Google search. If I can turn this up. But I should also point out a 9-second DuckDuckGo search, because do you know what a Google search turns up? The first fucking results, because Google fucks with the algorithm. The search term is NPR state media. The very first thing that pops up is the Wikipedia entry, and at the very top of the page it says, NPR is not state-run media and operates independently of any government or corporation. So the propaganda is even coming from your search engines now. People, you got to get sharp. Got to pay more attention. They changed the label to government funded media, by the way, which is no different than Russia Today or Sputnik or, wait for it, the BBC. BBC is state funded media. NPR is state funded media. And when the lefties like to thump their chest and talk about how well informed they are, what are the two they always say? Oh, I don't listen to any regular American media. I listen to NPR and the BBC. All puffed up about how intelligent they are. I'm going to play the audio here from this. Not so fast, NPR. This was a YouTube short. I'll run it back for you guys. Basically, what it comes down to is this. Boom. So you heard the audio yourself. You can go back and review it at your leisure. This is how you get people to that point. This is how you get people to the point where they're easily controlled by sound bites. Buzzwords, conspiracy theory. Oh, immediately. Well, fuck, we don't have to listen to this guy anymore. But again, we're bringing the fucking receipts. I say all that to say this. When you have people that are of that mind, as I keep saying week after week, sermon after sermon, it's time to disengage. You got to break loose from these people. You have to absolutely cut them from your life. There's no point in engaging anymore. You're not swaying anyone. Average person to read past headlines is like hunting unicorns. I'll go you one better, James, like hunting trans unicorns. You know, I mean that's just where it is. Ah, God. Okay, well you missed the whole soundbite. Great. You know what, man? I'm having a lot of audio difficulties. Basically, what it came down to is this. We'll just give we'll give the brief overview. It was a guy that had done a program on the World Economic Forum and them saying that they want us to eat the bugs, right? He basically brought receipts, 4 different articles from the World Economic Forum website that said, yes, you're going to eat bugs. Eating bugs is good for the climate. We need to move away from meat. This bug farm is going to change how people eat in the future. NPR called it a conspiracy theory. NPR called the gentleman in question a conspiracy theorist, a spreader of misinformation. Again, hate to keep beating that dead horse, but it all comes down to the same thing. The minute someone uses words like, well, that's been debunked, that's fact checked, that's misinformation, disengage. Disengage. Remember the meme about how committed some people are to the Matrix, that they are willing to fight for it, and they will. They will. They will put up a hell of an effort. NPR was labeled state media, but the bullet point and the point of this bullet, more to the point, was the fact that yes, they are. NPR is absolutely fucking state-run media. They are absolutely a propaganda mouthpiece for the government, but no more or no less than either Pravda and TASS were for the Soviet Union or any mainstream associate is, any mainstream media affiliate, rather. They are all pushing the same narrative. They are all pushing the talking points. You may have controlled opposition with Fox, but not by much. Only guy over there that actually let his balls drop on fucking Ukraine or anything else is Tucker. Sweater wearing motherfucker. Everybody else towing the line on Ukraine. Everybody else towing the line. Towing the line on the vaccines, and now towing the line on the Restrict Act. And that's where the segue is going. The Restrict Act. And again, getting back to narrative control and big tech. How about this? Because the bullet point originally was the dangerous overreach of the Restrict Act, dovetailing off of NPR being state-run media. And what did we do to look at that? We did a Google search for NPR state-run media, right? Here's what happens when you do a Google search for the Restrict Act. The first results, right? Are you ready for this? Verifying claims about the Restrict Act and VPN use. Why a bill that could ban TikTok is raising privacy concerns. What happens to TikTok? They're making it all about TikTok. All of the results that are popping up, they're making it all about TikTok, right? Yesterday's search, the first results were, this is why everything they're telling you about the Restrict Act is wrong. How it's not going to affect your freedom of speech. It's not going to give the government these broad sweeping powers, anything else. The number one result that came back on Google, and again, Restrict Act. That was the search term, Restrict Act. Okay. The first result that came back was from Senate.gov. Of all the results that could have come back, all the news items, all the things from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, all of the things from civil rights advocates, all of the things from politicians in the Senate that are opposed to this goddamn thing, the number one result that comes back is what? Senate.gov. Unbelievable. Restricting the emergence of security threats that risk information and communications technology. That's the source of the acronym Restrict Act. It says that it is there to establish a risk-based process tailored to the rapidly changing technology and threat environment by directing the Department of Commerce to identify and mitigate foreign threats to information and communications technology products and services. Let that sink in, people. They're basically handing over to unelected government bureaucrats. Problem with all these things. Anytime you hear Department of, these are unelected bureaucrats. Example, the Department of Education. Anybody want to take a guess at how long the Department of Education's been around? Take a guess, guys. No Google Sheets. No Google Sheets. I want somebody over here in the comment just to guess. How long has the Department of Education been around? Since the New Deal, since Woodrow Wilson, since the founding of the country? How long has the Department of Education been around? Take a guess. Anybody? Not seeing any responses, so I'm going to go ahead and fucking do my little spoiler for you. It's been around since the Carter administration. Since the 1970s. Thank you, Joey. And in that time, every year, their budget has increased. Every year. Some years it increases exponentially. And every year, the results for education in this country, by any standard measure, either stay level or, more often, get worse. Every year we throw more money at it. Every year we get less results from the money we're spending. And what is the constant solution? Well, we just didn't spend enough. We got to give them more money. Anything that says Department of. You were dealing with unelected bureaucrats. Department of Education, you don't get to vote on who runs that. The Department of Commerce, you don't get to vote on who runs that. Therefore, there is a certain layer of insulation. They can do whatever the fuck they want to do because there's no accountability. If a president fucks up, let me be clear. If a president fucks up in a non-pandemic year where they can't justify emergency measures and changing election laws and universal mail-in ballot harvesting and all this shit, if a president fucks up in a year like that, they can vote his ass out. Can't do that with the head of the Department of Education. Can't do that with the Attorney General. Can't do that with the Department of Justice. Can't do that with the Department of Commerce, any of that. So we are talking about handing over to the Department of Commerce, unelected bureaucrats, mind you, the power to decide on the fly that something that comes down the pipeline on social media, through email, any electronic means of communication, they get to decide on the fly what is misinformation. They get to be the de facto fact checkers. These are the same people that whose sworn testimony said that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. Where are those 51 ex-intelligence specialists, the experts that we were supposed to listen to? Now that it's come out that not only wasn't it Russian disinformation, but that everything is 100% verified. Where are those people? Where is the accountability? There's none. Doesn't matter what they said because there's no accountability. If they are wrong, there is no consequence. Same as putting the Department of Commerce, unelected bureaucrats, in charge of these electronic communications, these social media platforms. TikTok. Is it aimed at TikTok? Not once anywhere in the bill. And that's where we come back to the Google search. Everything is about TikTok. Restrict Act. What is about? Everything is about TikTok. Senator pushing for TikTok ban. What happens to TikTok? 6 ways the fight to ban it could play out. Why a bill that could ban TikTok is raising privacy concerns. No, what's not mentioned in the Restrict Act one single time? TikTok. What do we know from the opener? What did we talk about? What did we open on? They recite and repeat the cliches that convince them. So no matter what their opinion is on either side, they have an opinion about a bill that's supposed to ban TikTok. That bill doesn't exist. Complete fucking phantom. Product of their imagination. It's much, much bigger than that. And much more threatening. At the drop of a hat, they can decide that anything, any regime, by the way, this is where the left keeps getting it wrong. They seem to think they're in that Orwell thing where it's a perpetual present, where Oceania has always been at war with East Asia, a perpetual present where the party is always right. That is going to be the downfall of the left, because what they keep forgetting is these things that they put in place. What happens if the regime changes? What happens when the other team assumes power? All of these extra constitutional powers that you have assumed for yourself now are in the hands of your enemies. Now, to this regime, it doesn't matter because they have no intention of relinquishing power. None. That's a subject for another sermon. Let's get into what we're looking at right now. They are giving the Department of Commerce, unelected bureaucrats, and I'm sure probably some specially appointed czar or whatnot, the power to shut a platform down. Power to shut a platform down. Trump banned TikTok by executive order. That executive order was overturned, not just by Biden, but also by the courts. And I'm going to have to tell you, they were right to do it. Not because the move he made was wrong or was done for the wrong reasons. Trump banned TikTok because it is a Chinese spy app. In the same way that they went through the whole process of getting companies like Huawei banned from setting up communications networks here in the United States, because China is playing the long game. I understand why Trump banned TikTok by executive order. It was the right move that was done the wrong way. Trump is the only president in my adult life since Reagan that has taken China seriously as an adversary, which is what they are. I will forever give the Mango Menace credit where credit is due. Darth Cheeto got a lot of fucking things right, and China was definitely one of them. But here's the deal. They want to make it about banning TikTok, so you get the MAGA guys. Yeah, I'm calling you out too, MAGA crowd. Because if you're not looking past the headlines and you're not looking past the talking points, you are still the fucking problem. Leave it alone that for the left, it is a way of life to just parrot what the glow box tells them. You are no different if you don't dig past the headline. What, you think you think Republicans are incapable of speaking in talking points? You think people that worked for your beloved Orange Guys administration aren't capable of working in talking points? Do you not understand the power of propaganda? And I'm not even condemning where one administration or the other might have been going with it, but you got to recognize propaganda when it's right there in your face. You have to be able to plow through the fucking narrative, to plow through what they are wanting you to read, and to read between those lines and see what's really going on. I'm having big bang-ups with people right now. Guys that are so sworn to the MAGA crowd that they are actually of the opinion that DeSantis is deep state. Whether or not DeSantis is your guy in 2024, taking a look and saying that he is taking a look and saying that a Trump DeSantis ticket would be absolutely unstoppable in 2024 is just a statement of fact. So why the fuck would Trump be lighting into the guy who is the most obvious choice for a fucking running mate if we're looking to win in 2024? And spare me the QAnon shit about fucking trust the process. Stop. Propaganda works on a whole lot of levels, people. And if you think any of us are not susceptible to it, you can get me. You trip my triggers, yeah. You can lead me in a particular direction. The only difference is if I go willingly. Like, I know you bullshit me, man. I know you bullshit me, but I'm here for it. In any case, the Restrict Act is going to open it wide open to members of the Department of Commerce or, no doubt, a specially appointed board, the misinformation czars. Do you remember? Yeah, G-Dub. Yeah, okay. I'm familiar with the technicality, but you also know how easy that would be to work around. I mean, think about it. Hillary Clinton is not from fucking New York, but she served as a senator from New York. Establishing residency would not be that fucking difficult. Or anywhere else that he has a home, anywhere that he has a property. So yes, you're correct in the factual statement, but that wouldn't be too difficult to work around. Point being, do you remember when they had Scary Poppins, that attempt that they had at a ministry of truth before the Biden administration, who was going to decide, who was going to decide on behalf of the government what misinformation was or wasn't, the fact checker in chief for all intents and purposes, and the backlash from that forced them to fucking pull back from it. Now we have the scariest word in the fucking Congress, bipartisan. The Restrict Act actually has bipartisan support. So now, not only do the leftists and the members of the regime that want to control information get that power, but you've actually got Republicans on board, Republicans that are servants of the deep state, Republicans that are what we refer to as swamp Republicans. And what are they doing? They're looking to seize the same power. How are you not terrified by this? The powers contained. I want you to look up on Google. I want you to look up Electronic Frontier Foundation. You could probably pull it off with just EFF. You know what? Let me see if we can do that with just EFF. EFF Restrict Act. Here we go. Boom. Perfect. EFF for Electronic Frontier Foundation. Now, I have taken issue with the Electronic Frontier Foundation over the years. I think they have made some misguided calls, right? I think a lot of the people involved in the Electronic Frontier Foundation politically are very left of center. But here's the kicker. When you're left of center and you're coming out opposing a power grab, you need to be taken twice as seriously. Why do you think I listen to Taibbi? Why do you think I listen to Greenwald? They are creatures of the left, and they say that the left is out of control. Just like a creature of the right saying that Republicans are out of control. They need to be taken fucking twice as seriously. When the Overton window is shifted that far, again, I'm getting off track. It's our little trip down Tangent Street there. It happens. EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation. I want you to Google EFF Restrict Act. First things that pop up, stop the Restrict Act and pass real privacy legislation, because that's how it's being sold to us. Privacy and safety. It's always privacy and safety. They have to save us from this. They have to save us from a boogeyman, and the only way to save us from that boogeyman is to give the government all kinds of new broad sweeping powers. They did it with the Patriot Act. They did it with the FISA court. Bush did that with the Patriot Act and the FISA court, and then Mr. Transparency, Mr. Hope and Change, the mulatto messiah, fucking Obama, when he came into office, what did he do? Oh, he pulled it right down because the emergency was over, right? No, he doubled down. He expanded the FISA court. He doubled down and renewed the Patriot Act. Don't you understand at this point? You understand. You guys are thinkers. But why is it so difficult for everyone else to understand at this point that once you trip that trigger, there's no going back? That it's a perpetual fucking emergency. Do you realize that we were still under COVID state of emergency officially, according to the regime, until this fucking month? Why? So unscrupulous Democratic governors could hang on to those emergency powers a little bit longer. It's a power grab, nothing more. And we are in the home stretch, boys and girls, really pinning it down. Look up EFF Restrict Act and read those articles. The Broad Vague Restrict Act is a dangerous substitute for comprehensive data privacy legislation. They are selling it to us not only on the grounds of safety, but that it's a benefit to us because it's going to ensure our privacy. It's going to make sure that our data is secure. Nothing is further from the truth. TikTok has become the boogeyman. Who did that? Accidentally? Trump. Trump and the MAGA crowd. What, you think I'm not going to call out when somebody fucks up? Even if he did it for what I know he believed in his heart of hearts was the right reason, it was fucked up. It was short-sighted. There are ways to go around it. I understand that there was a sense of urgency, and he was doing it because he felt like it needed to be done, and he was right. But it left it wide the fuck open. Because now these unscrupulous motherfuckers are trying to pick up the mantle and say, well, you know, your boy Trump said we needed to ban TikTok. Well, here we're going to ban TikTok, even though the bill doesn't talk about TikTok. Who's carrying the narrative? Who's carrying the water? The same fucking mainstream media that would be unaffected by this because they are already carrying water for the regime. They're not threatened by this. No one's going to censor MSNBC or Fox or anyone else and tell them that they can't spew the same things they've been spewing because they're spewing it on behalf of the fucking regime. Do y'all get that? You tracking, Sparky? You guys with me? I'll tell you what the Rev says. What the Rev says is nobody gets to tell me what I fucking speak about. Nobody gets to fucking shut down anyone with regard to fact check. No regime has the right to fucking suppress the truth, and no regime has a monopoly on the truth. But we are not dealing with sane, rational people. We are dealing with unscrupulous, power-mad, insane individuals, and the grazers who are easily led into clapping like seals waiting for fish at their every fucking word. Save us from TikTok. Protect our data. Unelected bureaucrats. Do you see the trend? Do you see the right? Thank you, Stone. You did it with COVID. They bought it. Grazers fucking lapped it up. Thing about it is, and I'll say this, Mike, and I'm glad you brought that up because I don't think there'll be another COVID or public health. Everything now will be called a public health emergency, but as far as trying to sell us the virus thing again, I really don't see that happening. The people who are still wearing masks alone in their cars, they are the faithful, and they're not going anywhere. They will never waver. They're idiots. They will buy it no matter how many times they sell them the same fucking lie. But everybody else, I got to tell you, everybody else, including a lot of people that were hardcore true believers in the middle of this thing, they're over it. They're seriously fucking over it. I'm going to tell you something. If anybody wants to fucking play tattletale, go to it, man. My birth mother, mass Nazi extraordinaire, couldn't get the vaccines fucking fast enough. She's had COVID 4 fucking times now. Double vaxxed, double boosted, wearing masks everywhere. 4 times she's fucking had COVID. I would go so far. She'll never admit she's wrong. She'll never fucking admit she's wrong. But I'll tell you this, they come with another fucking, old virus of the week fucking commercial. She's not going to be in line to get that fucking vaccine. She'll tell all of her liberal friends that she is, but she won't really do it. There are millions of people like that. They're over it. So, Mike, yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the COVID thing because that won't sell. That won't sell again. It's got to be something else. Now it's a threat to our data. Now it's a threat to our infrastructure. Now it's misinformation. Now it's Russian election interference or anything else they can sell us to fucking make that power grab. But they shot their whole wad with COVID. I mean, granted, it was a hell of a pop shot, dude. Hell of a pop shot. I mean, Peter North style fucking out there, right? Hell of a pop shot. But they shot their whole fucking wad. And now they got a limp dick and nothing but blanks. So, might not be the best analogy, but that's the one we're fucking rolling with. Getting back to the Restrict Act, guys, they will be able to shut down and here, the damage control is already coming out. The regime is coming out. No, the Restrict Act wouldn't give government access to your private data, blah, blah, blah. The final text, all of it. You can find the text of this thing online. Don't take my word for it. Go and look and make your own decision. You may go and look and read the damn thing and say, you know what, that Reverend guy is totally full of shit. Fuck that guy. You may unsubscribe from my shit. And I'm totally all right with that. Because I would rather have you thinking critically and disagreeing with me than being the kind of person to follow any fucking guru. I'm not your goddamn guru. This is a huge threat. Not just to digital privacy. You can make the case. One person said that the way this thing is worded, I disagree with this. Let me say this for the record. I disagree with this, but I can see where you could make a case for it, and I could see why, and I could see where in a state of emergency, like attempted foreign election interference or another virus or terrorist attack, I could see where in a state of emergency they would stretch it. Stretch it to what? Here's what the guy said. If you look at the wording of it, the use of a VPN, you guys familiar with VPNs? Virtual private networks. It's basically like a tunnel for your internet connection. It fucking scrambles everything to where guys can't keep track of your data. They don't know, it constantly resets your IP address. So, it's harder for them to track your data and your internet activities if you use a VPN. There is wording in there that a guy said, if pulled very, very loosely, could be construed to say that use of a VPN is a felony. Now, I read it, even the part that he said could be, I read it for myself. I disagree. I disagree that would be the primary use for that particular clause, but I can definitely see where it could be done. Oh, but nobody's going to stretch the law like that just to prosecute someone, really? Because right now I see a misdemeanor from fucking 2016 being conflated into a felony and used against the next president. So don't tell me what couldn't be stretched. An unscrupulous prosecutor. This is a power grab. It's very fucking dangerous. You guys do need to look into it. You guys need to look at these things, because how often have I been wrong? Take a look at the bullet points on this. Oh, look at that. We got Tom Hollyby on. But Tom, I didn't even see you, brother. I didn't even see you. Glad you're here. Stacy Gardner. Cool, man. Sorry, man. I didn't see you guys over in the comments. It wasn't running. They are always looking to control the narrative, and now it has gotten to the point where the only way to control the narrative is to control what is allowed to be said. Because as much as they control the mainstream media, there are tons of other outlets. For right now, there's YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, whatever format you're watching me on right now. There's that for now. But we already know what happened. We already know what happened when pre-Elon Twitter was deliberately working with the federal government, deliberately to suppress particular stories that fucking benefited conservatives. Working directly with the federal government to suppress conservative content. Working directly with the regime. We know they did it. It's not even open for debate anymore. So we know what they're capable of. And even if Elon bought everything, even if every social media platform was owned between Elon Musk and, say, Dan Bongino, what he's doing over at Rumble, you have all these fucking formats. But let's say that it wasn't. Zuckerberg maintains control of Facebook. Say we lose control of fucking Twitter again, YouTube, Google, all of that, still with their left-wing leanings, and they shut people like me down. Right now, we can go over to Rumble. My replay every week airs on my channel over on Rumble. We go to BitChute. We go to Substack. We go to any of these things. So they cannot maintain 100% control of the narrative. However, we give them the power of the fucking Restrict Act. They don't have to control the narrative. They can flat out control what can even be said. It's one thing to let somebody say something and then put all the fact check stickers on it and go, that's misinformation, that's misinformation, that's misinformation. And then you can bounce over to Rumble and fucking look at what the guy actually said. You can bounce to anywhere on the internet and look up particular statistics and say, yes, they lied about this. Yes, masks didn't work. Yes, the vaccines were horribly ineffective. Yes, the vaccines are rife with fucking side effects. You can find that information. Not with the Restrict Act. The Restrict Act, they can put a misinformation tag on something the way they do now. They put a misinformation tag on something the way that they do now, and you flat can't fucking talk about it. It's like things under the War Powers Act. You guys ever heard that your freedom of speech doesn't give you the right to yell fire in a crowded theater? You ever heard that? I know you've heard that. First thing the fucking wannabe tyrants ever pop up with when you declare free speech. Well, free speech isn't absolute. You can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Do you know what court decision that actually comes from? You should do some homework on that. The Supreme Court decision that quote comes from about fire in a crowded theater was something about the War Powers Act, and it was being used to silence anti-war dissenters. Tyranny. Shutting down anti-government rhetoric by tyrannical means. Every time someone opens their mouth with that fire in a crowded theater thing, they have shown exactly who the fuck they are. They are either A, ignorant, more often, or B, they're perfectly aware of where it comes from and they're totally okay with that. Oh, and by the way, that fire in a crowded theater thing, yeah, that decision was overruled 40 fucking years ago. So it doesn't even stand anymore. So take your fire in your crowded theater and burn in it. Sorry, a little sidetrack. The Restrict Act would enable them to say, hey, that's fire in a crowded theater. No, it would enable them to say, we don't like. Fauci says the vaccines are safe and effective. You say they're not. But in this time of crisis, that is dangerous misinformation. So not only are we not going to allow you to say it on this platform, not only are we going to point out that it's misinformation, we don't need to point it out at all. You just can't say it. And if you persist in saying it anyway and finding ways around it, you will find yourself on your way to the gulag, my friend. There are alleged conservatives, registered Republicans in the Congress and the Senate that are supporting this. You want to wait around to vote them out? I can think of something that'd be a hell of a lot more effective, but that would be incitement to violence. And that would be like, yelling fire in a crowded theater. A Canadian friend recently insulted Trudeau online. 2 days later, RCMP came to visit him and wanted him to explain his joke. Total censorship there. And I'm glad you brought that up because we were just about to kick it over to Canada. If you want to look at where they're headed with this, here's the perfect segue. And G-Dub, you dropped that in right at the right time. Perfect. Excellent timing. Almost as if we coordinated it. We didn't, but thank you. You want to take a look at where they're headed with this? All you need to do to bridge the gap between the Restrict Act and the Canadian hate speech crime and the fact checkers and shutting down flows of information and things like that. What did they do to Matt Taibbi on the very day that he testified about the Twitter files? And yes, I'm aware that there's a dust up between Elon Musk and Matt Taibbi right now. I'm perfectly aware of it. I don't have enough information to make a judgment call on it, so I'm not going to talk about it until I do. If Elon's fucking up, I'll call him out. If Taibbi's fucking up, I'll call him out. But right now, I don't have the information, so I'm not commenting on it at all. But I'll tell you what they did to Taibbi, and Roman, you're right, on the very day. Good point, Tom. Good point. On the very day that he testified in front of Congress on the Twitter files, the IRS visited him at his house. This is like what GW is talking about. Now, granted, Taibbi is a much more high-profile guy than GW's friend. GW's friend is an ordinary guy, which makes it scarier. This is what they want for the United States. This is what the globalists want for the United States. We are the last bastion of any sort of fucking freedom or liberty, and they hate it. But you want to see where it's headed in Canada right now? Just look up Canadian hate speech codes trans. Canadian politician wants to criminalize offensive remarks against drag queen story hour. What? Yeah. And as far as I know, feel free to fact check me on this, but my understanding is that the law passed. What did C-16 in the Canadian Code give us? C-16 gave us the rise of Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was an obscure professor at the University of Toronto. He'd written a book. He was a practicing psychologist. But when they came out with C-16 saying that they were going to compel people to use people's chosen pronouns, Jordan Peterson stood up and said, no, I will not have my speech compelled. So in their push to do this, because the left are always clueless about unintended consequences, just like they can't learn the lessons of when we take power from ourselves, one day the Republicans could be in control, and all these things that we've seen from them, they'll be able to do to us. They never learn. Promise you, this push is going to give us 10,000 more Jordan Petersons. Promise you that the Canadian government freezing the bank accounts of the trucker protest is going to give us 10,000 more angry truckers. They just can't stop pushing. It is this sick, pathological compulsion that they have. They can't control themselves. And now they're going one better. C-16 was bad enough. C-16 gave us the rise of Jordan Peterson. But now, this Canadian politician, Kristen Wong-Tam, introduced legislation, and I'm quoting from the legislation, would criminalize making offensive remarks within 100 meters of drag queen story hours. Remember last week when we got into how out of control, like any vague comment that makes a trans person uncomfortable is going to get your ass to the fucking gulag? Take a look at one of the memories I posted on my personal page today. From back in 2016, I was saying there's no end to this. There is no end to this. Slippery slope fallacy, slippery slope fallacy. Yeah, Ryan? Thauburn, excuse me. Didn't want you guys to think I was calling out brother Ryan on that. Fucking Ryan Thauburn and his slippery slope fallacy defense. It's not a slippery slope. Slippery slope is not a fallacy when there's historical precedent. Slippery slope is not a fallacy when it is their when it is their declared intent. We are going to keep pushing until you can't say bad things about us anymore. Yeah, well, it's a democracy, dude. It'll never get to that. Well, it has. This law is passed now. If there is a drag queen story hour going on, which first of all, don't ask what, don't ask why children should be, don't ask why children should be present at drag queen story hour. Ask why drag queens want an audience of children. That should be the first question we're asking. But beyond that, and it's weird the trans community suddenly coming together with the drag queen community, because every trans person I've ever spoken to, the hardcore lefty trans activists that I've ever spoken to, hated fucking drag queens because they are cosplaying our life. Oh, but now they're all getting together. Now they're all getting together in the quest to shut down any anti-narrative speech. You get within 100 meters, we're in Canada, you get within 100 meters of drag queen story hour and you make any remark that they find intimidating, you make any remark that makes them even vaguely uncomfortable, you can be imprisoned and fined up to $25,000. What? Yes. Going on in Canada. Just north of us, up here in Canada, right fucking now. Catholic Vote Director of Communications Joshua Mercer agreed words are violence to the leftist mob, and now they are acting on it. You remember when they put the buffer zones around abortion clinics? They did that in Canada and to a lesser degree here in the United States. Oh, it's a buffer zone. It's just for fucking keeping women safe. What has Merrick Garland's DOJ done with that? People who are guilty of no violent offenses at all, but because they said things, because they were there and they prayed on the sidewalk, they're getting visits at 3 o'clock in the morning with armed agents of the FBI. Look it up. Fact check me on it. Now, you can feel however you want to feel about abortion. You could be 100%. You could be 100% pro-choice. Now, if you're 100% pro-choice and a hardcore leftist, you love that these people are being handled at gunpoint. You've never had a problem with government overreach. You've never had a problem with abuse of power. You've never had a problem with violence. So long as it's directed against those bad people, those Jesus people, those freedom people, those MAGA people, you don't have a problem with it on principle, you lying fucks. And I've called this out since way before my turning point in 2016. I have always called you out. The left have always been the most bitter, spiteful, hateful, small little control freaks. Always. But now they have the power of the state to back them. What is happening in Canada is one step removed from what is happening in the United States. If you don't think the Restrict Act is about restricting the nature of the narrative and what you are allowed to say in opposition to the regime, any regime, and I don't care that it's the cadaver in chief in control right now, no regime, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, no regime has the right to tell you what you can or cannot say, can or cannot think. If you don't think that I would be calling this out as an overreach if Trump were still in the Oval Office, you don't know me at all. Stand the fuck down. Take your ass back to the kids' table with a warm cup of shut the fuck up. I spent 8 years raging against the Bush junta administration, and their overreaches. When I say authoritarianism is not okay on principle, I mean that shit. I don't say it's not okay unless my team is in charge. But if that's the rules that you want to make, motherfucker, keep in mind that this will come back to haunt you. We have very long memories. And now, I think we're done being nice. This push that you are seeing in Canada, you can expect to see similar pushes here in the United States. We had an outspoken trans person walk into a Christian school, kill 3 seniors and 3 kids, and the next day, the only thing Karine Jean-Pierre and the regime had to say about it was how much they've got the trans communities back, and then 4 days later gave them another fucking holiday. Look that up. Fact check me. I'm not exaggerating. That happened. Does that mean the regime supports fucking murder? I'm not saying that. Wouldn't even suggest that. I will suggest that they're perfectly willing to look the other way on murder, as long as it's not a MAGA person committing it. If it's a BLM activist, they're totally okay with murder. If it's a trans activist, they're totally okay with murder. Violence, as long as it's leftist against a federal building in Portland, they're totally okay with it. As long as it's leftist storming a Capitol building in the state of Tennessee, they won't even call it an insurrection. If it's leftist occupying a fucking state house in Oklahoma, totally cool. Yeah, we punched a few cops, but it's mostly peaceful. They burned down cities for an entire fucking year, and you can expect that rolling forward. I know I'm off on a tangent here. I'm going to roll with it. Just saddle up. Butch up, Sally, because we're on it now. Just in time for the summer, riot season, or maybe a little bit closer when you start to head off into the election. This case against Trump is going to fall apart. What do you think the mostly peaceful crowd is going to do about that? Just a little something, a little poke into the bread oven. Here's the point. The push is slow and steady and incremental, but it is constant. Every little chip that they can take out of what you were able to say. What did we say in the opener, though? What did we say in the opener? Ha! That's interesting. I'll support trans, gays, drag shows, whatever. In exchange, they have to legalize polygamy. They turn it down every time. Why? Exactly. Counterculture movement like the hippies, but on crack, speed, steroids, and crocodile. Also an interesting observation. It is incremental. It is constant. Every chip that they can take out of our ability to speak out. What did Orwell teach us? What was Newspeak? What was Newspeak in 1984? Did you read your Orwell? Did you do your homework assignment, boys and girls? What was it about? The purpose of Newspeak is that eventually the language would get to a point where no one could say anything against the party or against Big Brother because the words and language would not exist to express it. Now, we aren't even that sinister. We're way more surface level about it. We're just telling people you can't say this. Within 100 yards of an abortion clinic, even here in the United States, there are certain things you can't say. There are certain actions you can't take within 100 yards. Actions are one thing. If it's a violent action, I totally support restricting that. Again, we're back to that principle thing. No matter whose team is in charge. But within 100 yards, you can't shout certain things. And in Canada, now within 100 yards of Drag Queen Story Hour, you don't think trans activists will push for that here in the United States? You don't think if they only had the political stroke, and yes, Joey, I see you, and people should look into that case. If they only had the political stroke, and they are right on the edge of having that political stroke, they would have us all dead or in gulags. Do you think I'm exaggerating? Look what these lunatics were willing to fucking say that should happen to us over a respiratory virus with a 99.8% survival rate. That we should have our children taken away, that we should be forbidden to work, that we should be denied medical treatment. Recognize the sickness of the people that you are dealing with. Recognize the extremes to which they are willing to go. But as I said before, and you know what? we're going to totally bypass this Washington assault weapons ban. That's something that I need to spend more time on. So we're going to give it a whole thing next week after it passes. And it certainly is going to pass. So it'll be there next week. What did I say in the opener, guys? What did I say in the opener? Remember a quote from Mencken? What did Mencken have to say about that? The final test of truth is ridicule. Very few dogmas have ever faced it and survived. What is this speech code, if not more dogma? What is this narrative control and fact checking, if not more dogma? So these out of control trans activists, even though, did you see what they did to the swimmer, Riley Gaines? Did you see what they did to her this week? Riley Gaines was a top level female swimmer, and she basically got knocked out of a scholarship because she had to compete against a man. A man. Leah Thomas is a man. 2 + 2 make 4. Leah Thomas is a man. Riley Gaines got booted out of scholarships and college, not scholarships, but got booted out of a number of opportunities because she had to compete against a man. 2 + 2 = 4. She went to plead her case at a number of university campuses. There were 2 this week that really fucking popped up to the surface. One I'll let you look up. It's posted on my fan page, where a cultural what did he call himself? Social justice anthropologist or some other such nonsense, tried to insist that if you dug up two skeletons 100 years from now, you wouldn't be able to tell the genders apart. And then when everybody laughed at him because an 8-second Google search, like I said before, the 9-second rule, a 9-second Google search tells him he's completely full of shit. And everybody laughed at him. And he couldn't figure out why he was being laughed at because he was the, and I quote, expert in the room. Thank God for Riley Gaines. I thank God for Riley Gaines for, oddly enough, being a woman that had the balls to step up and call this shit out to its face. To ridicule it. J.P. Sears, you guys familiar with him? He does the parodies where he's like super lefty, hippie, vegan guru guy, but you guys are familiar with J.P. Sears. He's hilarious, and he has ridiculed this from day one. He did the whole, he made the big video production of him, like breaking all these women's powerlifting records while wearing a sports bra. It's ridicule. It's fucking hilarious. This is the way that we deal with it for now. Riley Gaines was a nice bridge of the gap in that. She was able to ridicule these idiots at one university, but then she went to the University of San Francisco. Bad fucking move. A violent mob attacked her. She was punched several times by several men. Fuck your identity. You punched a woman and you're swinging a dick. She was punched several times by men. And then they basically held her for ransom for 3 hours. They weren't going to let her out of the fucking building unless they fucking paid this off or she said this or that. This is what we're up against. So understand that ridicule is where we need to be right now with regard to any of this. We need to be ridiculing the people who seek to suppress us, whether that is drag queen activists or who say that we can't say disparaging words within 100 yards of a fucking pedophile story hour, whether it's lunatics insisting that it's okay for men to punch women so long as the men are wearing sports bras, for grazers that go along and believe that when the government says we're doing this for your own good, that they are, that you can trust the experts, that everybody isn't compromised, that they really want the best for you. We need to be ridiculing all of these people. But we also have to bear in mind, ridicule will carry the day with thinking people, but there are enough unthinking people that are easily swayed. They're not in the majority. They haven't been for a long time. But right now, they are given inordinate access to the media. They are being promoted if everybody feels this way about it. You want to talk about audacity? Anheuser-Busch. Jesus Christ. There's bigger items going on, and you know what? We're going to get into that environmental government, environmental and governance, EG, environmental, social, and governance thing, that ESG thing. We're going to get into that next week. Because there's lots bigger going on there. But you would think, from everything that is put in your face every day, you would think that you are not only in the minority, but you are actually shunned by the overwhelming majority of people, that your opinion doesn't matter at all. That is the ultimate gaslighting. They're very fucking good at it. Two things that we have to remember. One, don't be gaslit. We are in the majority. Two, ridicule is the way to go. But the one thing that we do need to remember is that ultimately these people are unhinged. They are unhinged. They are violent because they haven't seen consequences for that violence yet. Antifa attacked a courthouse, a federal courthouse in Portland, Oregon, for months. Most of those people were let go without charges. I think you had like 2 felony charges out of that whole mob. Everybody else was either let go or charged with misdemeanors. Nobody prosecuted them. All the people that participated in the fucking, fentanyl Floyd riots, summer of 2020, people that burned the church, people that stormed the Secret Service at the gate of the White House, made Trump retreat into a fucking bunker. How many of those people got prosecuted? Hell, the sitting vice president, that cackling whore, put funds together to have them released from jail. None of those people served any time. They weren't fucking charged. And if they were charged, they were charged with misdemeanors. These people are way more willing to engage in violence, because we talked briefly sideways at the beginning of the program. They've never been affected by the violence, and they've never suffered consequences for the violence. We need to remember that they're going to be a lot more hair-triggered, a lot more prone to use violence first. And when they do, all bets are off. Ridicule them. Laugh to their fucking faces. Laugh to their faces. Laugh in their pinched, little, evil, bitter faces. Laugh straight at them. Realize what's going to happen. They are going to swing on you. Don't swing first. Ridicule is the tool. Say it with me. Ridicule is the tool. They come, they scream, they shriek. Laugh. Laugh. It's all that they've earned. And when, and I promise you they will, they raise a hand to you, you end them. End them. Show them that speech is not violence. And then give them a point of reference about the difference in feeling between speech and violence. This is what it feels like when I'm laughing at you. This is what violence feels like. And when you walk away from that encounter, make sure that they have no illusions in their head that there is any connection between speech being violence anymore. They will know, with no doubt, what violence feels like. They might not be able to articulate it with their jaw wrecked like that, but they will know. That's not a threat. That's not incitement. These are just statements of fact. These people are unhinged. They are willing to do horrible things. They believe themselves righteous. So continue to ridicule them. Continue to ridicule them, because we know better. They are cowards. Treat them as such. Treat them as such. Absolutely. Treat them like cowards. For the Antifa maggots, for the leftist lunatics, for the fentanyl Floyd jerk-offs, for the mask Nazis, for the statists, for the grazers, for the Pollyannas. Ridicule them. Ridicule them because that is what they deserve. But when they lift a hand to smite you for your ridicule, you remind them that there is a pecking order and that there is a food chain. And they are at the bottom of it. Remind them of their place in it. And do it in such a way that forevermore they will fucking stay there. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. This is Easter Sunday. You guys know that I was raised in the church, that I was steeped in the scriptures. A lot of you out there are people of faith. I encourage that faith, because it is that faith that gives you strength, and it is that faith that is reflective of your strength. I envy that on a whole lot of levels. But on this day, commemorating the death and the rebirth. We have a lot of common ground. Pagans and heathens and the Christians. We got a lot. Because in our mythology, we understand the death and the rebirth as well. But for you, it's next level. I was raised in the church. I was steeped in those scriptures. I am of the opinion that Mel Gibson's depiction didn't go far enough. Christians, you got a lot of people in your own backyard that that aren't on the level that they need to be with regard to realizing what it really is that they represent and really believe in. The metaphor or the reality, whichever. Like I said, Mel Gibson did a hell of a job with the Passion. He really did. But just the story of a torturous murder like that, and of a man willingly first of all, never had to do it. Son of God, never had to do it. Willingly coming to earth, willingly walking among us in human form, willingly standing up to the power structure, standing up to lies, standing up to authoritarianism, standing up to deception. Wow, any of this sound vaguely familiar? An anti-establishment hero of the highest order by any measure. But in keeping with the scripture, voluntarily putting himself in the position to be ridiculed, to be beaten, to be lambasted, to be ostracized, and ultimately to be tortured and murdered and die. For what? To redeem a world full of people that, by all indications and by any standard of measure, don't fucking deserve it. To descend into hell and 3 days later step up and walk right out of that tomb. And his last thing here, who was still bleeding wounds, to go to his friends and his apostles, his disciples here on earth and say, hey, guys, chill. I'm good. I'm returning to the Father. I'm going to see you again someday. If that story, whether you are a believer in the Gospels or not, whether you are a Christian or not, if that story doesn't move you, I wonder if you even have a soul. I'm not on that path anymore. I am an honest, true heathen. I pay my homage to the old gods. I wear my hammer, and I wear it proudly. But I'm going to tell you something, man. I got love for my Christians. Got a lot of love for my Christians. This is their holiday. And I'm going to give it the proper respect. To my Christian friends, happy Easter. Celebrate the death. Celebrate the resurrection. In your own scriptures, the words, He is risen. Take the strength of that belief. Take the power of that redemption bought in blood. Take lessons of strength for your own life going forward. Amen. One thing I want to touch on before I get out of here, guys, I'm going to put this down. I am on Substack now. That is, you guys go ahead and write that down, reverendbart.substack.com. Here's the situation, guys. I'm going to let you know. Right now, it is free. I am going to start charging for it, but it's going to be a pittance of an amount. $3 to $5 a month. Okay. And And I say that because I would rather have 1,000 people on at $3 a piece than two people on at $1,500 a piece, because I want the reach. I want to be able to reach people and maybe influence them, maybe get them to rethink themselves, maybe get them to rethink the way that they look at the world. And thank you, Tom. To get them to rethink themselves, their own lives, get them to do something different. I'm also going to be posting a lot of fucking prepper advice, things like that. Basically, here's going forward. This is the transition that's going to be made. All of the long rants that you see me making, whether it's on my personal page or on my fan page, it's all going to be turned into blog entries, and I'm going to be posting them on Blogger and at Substack. This includes prepper advice. There was that long treatise that I gave about how, people that are caught at like the last minute and don't really know how to throw things together and don't really know how to prepare and whatnot. Stuff like that I'll be having going forward. Small observations. Sometimes it'll be a long ass write up. Sometimes it'll be a short fucking entry. But I'm really tired of doing what I'm doing on. I like your style, G-Dub. I like your style. I'm really tired of doing what I do on social media, just ranting and raving and shaking my fist at the fucking clouds for free. It took me a long time to accumulate the knowledge that I have. It took me a long time to accumulate the verbal acumen and the gift that I have for expressing it. Am I puffing my own pecker here? Maybe, but y'all are here and you're listening. So, what's the old saying? If there's something that you're good at, never do it for free. And I've basically it's been my therapy. It really has. It's been my therapy for far too long. But I've been doing it for free for far too fucking long. And I'm just kind of tired of that. You're going to see posts, like my personal page will have personal posts. Me and the old lady, maybe some instant pot recipes, that kind of stuff. It'll be there. And I will still be doing the sermons every Sunday. Going forward, I don't know. I will constantly keep y'all posted as to what the formats are going to be, what I'm moving away from, where I'm going, because I appreciate y'all's support. This thing started off as just me once a week getting on and ranting and raving for an hour just to get stuff off my chest about the fucking COVID epidemic, and look where we're at now. It's not huge. It's not as huge as I would like it to be. But goddamn, man, it beats the fuck out of what anybody slagging on me is doing. My super stalker right now, Joshua Ryan Smith, I'll go ahead and call him out. Skinny little pretty boy bitch. But yeah, my super stalker, super hater right now, what has he done? What's your latest hit, brother? Anybody else who's out there criticizing, what have you done, man? What have you done? I may not have the follower count that I would like to see. I may not have the exposure that I would like to have or the recognition, but I'm out here every week and I'm doing it. I'm out here with my feet on the ground. I'm in the arena every fucking Sunday. I'm doing my thing. And I'm really tired of just throwing the shit out for free on Facebook, like cheap little rant that people want to titter and giggle at. All right, cool, great. But not anymore. So hell, man, maybe all I wind up doing is losing a shitload of fucking following that see me on Facebook and nowhere else. Okay. What's the old saying? If somebody burns you for $100 and you never see them again, it was worth it. If people profess to dig what I'm laying down, on Facebook, but they're not willing to pony up $3 to $5 a month, to hear me give more fleshed out offerings, things that could affect them directly, things that could help them out directly. Cyril Jeff, man, you talk to Cyril Jeff, you see him on my fucking pages. It's related to Mike Darmada, who I was discussing earlier. He's got bug out bags for his whole fucking family, and he never would have done that. Like back in the day, he will tell you, it's like, yeah, man, the stuff that Bart's taught me has seriously changed things. And that's where I want to be. That's really where I want to be. But I'm not so humanitarian that I'm giving it away for free anymore. So if somebody thinks that's arrogant, cool, fine. You don't have to, you don't have to come. If somebody thinks that my reach is exceeding my grasp, well, we'll see. We'll see a year from now, but I'm changing directions on a whole lot of things right now in my life. I've been going through some changes since about middle of last year. I lost my boy Austin Cost. Was killed by fentanyl overdose. I lost my father. You guys know what that, and it's just, I'm re-examining a whole lot of shit. I really am. So it's going to be awkward for a little bit, going through some changes. But the cool thing about all of this, in my view, is that, like for instance, Joey I've only met once in real life. You know what I mean? But I got a bond and I got a connection with Joey. I still have the gift that he gave me. That walking stick that he gave me, ballistic weaponized walking stick, shall we say, remains in my vehicle everywhere I go. And we communicate. I feel like I've got a bond with that. There are people that I've known for a long time in real life, guys like Stone, guys like Roman, G-Dub, fuck, man. I mean, yeah, thinking back, I've known G-Dub since probably 2008, I guess. Tommy from the Drop Zone. There are a lot of people here that I haven't gotten to see for years, but y'all are here, and we're all like kind of gathered together around my little imaginary kitchen table here, and we're having a cup of coffee and we're talking over the day's events. Like Tom. Tom, just finally got to meet him, just last year in real life when I was recovering from surgery, and he came through town. And now we're tight. We're friends. We are definitely gonna be getting some trigger time in at some point this year with this certain crazy Russian will be leading festivities. I appreciate y'all being here, man. And this affords me the opportunity to continue to do what I do. I'm going through some change. It's going to be awkward for a minute, but I appreciate all of your support. And I mean that, man, like from the heart. I really, really mean it. You guys are fantastic. I appreciate the support. I appreciate the encouragement. Even if you can't do, like 3 to 5 a month, or drop something in a collection plate. I got no problem with that, man, because you guys are supportive. Everybody is supportive in their own ways. Some people have more resources to be supportive than others. Some people feel it and offer in different ways than others. Some have different history than others, but we're all in here and we're together, and I feel like I'm at least somewhat building something approximating a community here of like minds and kindred spirits, and that's really what I set out to do to begin with. So hopefully that'll be successful. But check me out. I will be on Substack. I will also be on Blogger. I've got my thing over on Blogspot. I'll come up with the address on that. The entries will be the same. There is a PayPal donate button over on the Blogger thing as well. If you want, say you read one and you're like, hey man, this is bullshit. But then you read another one, it's like, hey man, I got a lot out of this, and want to kick me like $5. Cool. Every little bit helps. In the meantime, I'm lucky because G-Dub will remember this from comedy. G-Dub will remember this from right, exactly. G-Dub will remember this from comedy, man. It was easy for me to push the envelope with comedy because I did not depend on comedy to I did not depend on stand-up to pay my bills, right? I always had a job. I always had something else going on. I was always training people, this, that, or the other thing. So I could afford to take risks. because at the end of the day, I didn't need stand up. And I eventually walked away from stand up when it wasn't fun for me anymore. Same thing here. I would love to get this to a point where it was self-sustaining and I could just spend the whole week creating content for you guys, just doing like real-time videos, like out in the world. Oh, I knew. I knew, Tom. I knew. But if I could do this full time and just be a full time content creator or influencer, that would be great. But I'm blessed in the sense that I also have a trade as a crane operator. Thanks to brother Ryan Adam Jenkins, I have a trade as a. Oh shit! I'd forgotten about that story, G Dub. Oh shit! I'd totally forgotten about that. Yeah, we were in line for auditions for Last Comic Standing when that happened. I'll let G Dub tell you the story on that. Anyway, here's the thing. I would love to be a full-time content creator and influencer, but thankfully I am not beholden to anyone. So if all of these platforms all said, hey man, you can't talk about that or we won't have you on. Okay, well fine, I won't be on. I'll go run a crane for a living. Oh, terrible, right? I mean, so it's okay. I've got a certain measure of freedom. Basically, the roundabout way of saying is I really appreciate all of you that are here and everything that you've given me up until this point. And thank you for making me feel like less of a lone voice in the wilderness. I will continue to keep bringing it to you guys. You guys honor and respect me, not just with your money, not just with your contributions, but with your presence. And I try to honor and respect you guys in return by shooting straight, always speaking the truth, calling it like I fucking see it, never fucking bullshitting you guys, and to deliver something, a little something every week, consistently, week over week. And hopefully, I feel like we've succeeded. So that'll be cool. In any case, now that I got all that out of the way, we'll go ahead and play the outro music. Little Clutch, as always, going out with Fortunate Son. Neil Fallon and Clutch, man. If you've never seen them live, you got to. They are fucking awesome. Gonna pass that digital collection plate around. If you got a little something to offer, I'm on PayPal, I'm on Cash App, I'm on Venmo, I'm on Zelle, Facebook Pay, I'm on every goddamn thing. I need to turn that down a little bit. Yeah, there we go, because that was way too fucking loud. But yeah, if you can, that would be great. If not, here's what you can do. Tell a friend, bring a friend to one of the sermons, subscribe and bump me up in the algorithm, right? Subscribe to me on YouTube, subscribe to me on, this, that, or the other platform, subscribe to me on Substack. That would give me a hand. And tell friends about it. Hey, man, all my Sinner Sisters, my Reverend Rangers, my Prophets of Doom out there. Hey, man, this is fat, toothless cripple, fucking crane operator with some opinions. And every Sunday he gets on and rants and raves for an hour or two. I think you'll dig the program. Turn them on to it, man. Spread that gospel a little bit. But here's what you can do. Not just for me, man. Not just for me, but for you. And this is the important bit. Independent of everything else. Stone has got the hashtag. Live the three. Live the three. What are the three? It's the three prime directives, man. Is it Dale Earnhardt? Yes. It also honors Dale. All right, cool. Stand. Close your eyes. Pour out. Live the three, man. It's the three prime directives. The signal to noise ratio is always fucked up. There's so much noise, they'll try to bury you in the noise. You have got to be the signal that breaks through that noise, man. Ignore the distractions, the noise. Be that voice, that signal that breaks through the noise. They'll try to bury you with the darkness. They'll dehumanize you. They'll demoralize you. They will emasculate you. They will gaslight you. They will do anything you can to be buried in that darkness. Make you believe there's nothing but the darkness. That's why you got to step up and be that light. You know, light that breaks through the darkness. But here's the most important one, the third one, the prime directive, the iron rule. You have got to be that strength in a world full of weakness. I'm not talking just here. Here is good, but it's got to be here, 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 and even here. That strength is more important than anything else. Because without that strength, guess what, man? Without that strength, you're not going to have the punch to be that signal to break through the noise. You're not going to have the stamina to carry that light through the darkness. What was the line from the Bruce Lee film? Who knows what beauty has died out of this world for want of the strength to survive? So have that strength, hold it. That is the prime directive. Strength in a world full of weakness. Strength to cast that weakness into stark contrast and throw it into the fucking pit. Keep each other strong, guys. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Mike, I'm glad you made it, bro. Glad you made it. Yeah, we gave some love to Steve right here at the beginning of it, brother. We did. I love you, man. All of y'all, appreciate you moving forward. I love y'all. I'll be here next Sunday. I am the Reverend. That is the gospel. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Honor it all, dude. Honor it all. Honor the people that are close to you. The ones that love you and the ones that you love. Honor them, man. And honor that little spark of the divine that's in every one of us, whether you believe it or not. I love you guys. Peace. See you next Sunday. Love y'all, man.